Hello, hello, welcome. Thank you so much for joining in today. I am just making sure everything works. I think it does. So bear with me a second. And that's, my camera is straight. Sometimes I bump it in the setup and then it becomes a bit wobbly. There we go. How is everyone? I hope you're doing well. Why is this not working? I am just quickly setting up one thing and then I'm going to get started with sketching. We are going to draw in ink today. I'm really looking forward to it. I'll try this one more time. So, because I'm also trying to stream on Facebook at the same time. So let's see if I can get it to work. There we go, I'll try it one more time. If it doesn't work, I will just be only on YouTube, which is also okay. Which is sort of my original live session location. But I know some people like to watch it on Facebook, sometimes afterwards as well. There we go. So I got that to work, so that is great. Wonderful. That means I'm ready to get started now. So I'm going to use my sketchbook today. I have some inks here. I opened my ink pot earlier and I got lots of ink over me. I have this crimson red ink, which I spilled all over my hands. So I'm a little bit stained. It happens really easily. And I am going to use my See White of Brighton sketchbook. This is a picture that I made earlier today as an inspiration video for my community. So I have recorded that and that is up on my community later today. People who are members who want to watch it back. It's based on my February prompt list. So the prompt for this day was woolen mittens in front of an like frozen windows. I made it into a stained glass window. So there we go. So new page, new day. And these are the pens that I'm going to use today. I was gifted these not so long ago, and I'll put a link in the description. I was gifted these not so long ago, and these are calligraphy pens. There we go. So it comes with a base and then with some different nibs. And I have used calligraphy pens to draw with before. So I'm going to use a dip pen and a pot of ink. This is Winsor & Newton. I have some different colors here. So this is crimson. I have purple here. It looks a little bit the same on camera. I have white and silver and some other colors here as well. So these are the inks that I'm going to use. And I will also use some water and a brush to make the ink wet here and there, because that is a technique that I really like to use. You don't need to have these specific pens to join in. You can join in with any pen that you like. So whether that is a calligraphy pen or a fine liner or a ballpoint pen or just a sketch pencil, join in with what material you want to use. We're not making it too complicated. And the reference pictures that we are using are from Pinterest. So I'll just quickly share the link to my Pinterest board. So there you go. So this is my Pinterest. You can find all the reference pictures there, and I save them under drawing ideas. So there we go. So each of the pictures that I share it on my board drawing ideas, but if you go to Makings and Musings, you can find it there. There we go. Poo-poo, I don't think I need this big woolen jumper. It's not so cold today. I hope the sound is all okay. If you struggle hearing me, let me know and I'll do my best to adjust it. I am going to choose a nib for today. So, and I think I might go for this Gothic nib. I've not used it before. I've tried some of the other ones. before, but I have not used this one. So, and you just pop it in to the, so you just pop it into the top and then it's ready to use. Very easy. There we go. So this is quite stiff. Some of the calligraphy, like the writing ones that are not calligraphy, are a little bit thinner and a bit more flexible, but this one is a little bit stiff and that is also okay. I'm just going to try it out. And my plan was for today to draw farm animals. So you can see the first reference already on the page. The first reference is this goose. And I will just go through different animals. So this is what I like to do. I like to sort of go through each of the references fairly fast and just instantly dive into the drawing, not try and overthink it too much, and just have some fun and sketch together. So if everyone's ready, then we will get started. If you have any questions, just pop them in the chat. I'm always happy to answer questions. So just zoom in a little bit more and then I'm going to get started. What I'm going to do with the water and the brush, I will show you in a little bit here. See, I spilled ink everywhere earlier. I love drawing in ink. My whole desk is pink from it. I love drawing in ink, but I'm not always the... I'm a bit clumsy sometimes, let's put it that way. There we go. So the first thing I'm going to do is just test my pen. And so just make sure that there is enough ink on it. I'm going to test my pen just to see how fine or how thick the lines are. Oh, see, there we go. That's actually quite a long line, and as you can see, you can draw for quite a long time before your ink runs out. So let's start with the sketch. As you can see, I'm not using a sketch pen, so I'm going straight in with ink. So move this a little bit so I can see it a bit better. So I'm starting with this goose. So I have quite a loose illustration style. I am not a perfectionist, and I believe that perfectionism can really stop people from making art. So I'm really trying to let go of perfectionism and just have fun and create with that sort of creative flow. And I don't mind if things are a little bit wonky. So you can see I'm starting with the wings here. So this is the legs. So when you feel ready, join in, grab yourself some materials, and don't worry too much about creating like the perfect animal portrait. This is more about finding some time to get creative, because often perfectionism is something that stops us from creating at all, because we start worrying about, what it looks like, what other people might think, about these sort of final results, what it is that other people are making. Maybe other people are better, like all these things. So that's also why I quite like to just sketch loose and just see what happens. There we go. That's why I also I call this sketching, but I'm going straight in with ink, and I don't actually make a sketch in a sketch pen, so I just like to dive straight in there and just see how that goes. There we go. First animal is already on the paper. So I used this technique a little while ago for drawing some portraits. And someone asked me afterwards what the ink was that I used, and I've not responded yet. So if you are here as well, if you watch that video and you're here as well, I'm using just a pot of Winsor Newton ink, and I also have some pots of Ecoline or Ecoline, depends a bit on where you are. I have some of those, but they're very old, but that brand still does similar pots nowadays. And but you can use any pen as long as your ink is water soluble. You can use it for the technique that I'm going to use a little bit later with water. Let's pick the next animals. I wanted to do farm animals, and actually, should we stick with birds for now? I really like this rooster as well. So there we go. So just carrying on. Actually, let me save this. So if you want to find it, you can find it on my Pinterest. So, and maybe a little bit higher, starting here. I often like these pictures the most as well, where I just allowed myself to experiment. Why is there no color coming off? I often actually like these much better than the pictures where I'm putting a lot of effort in getting everything perfect. So it's a bit of a win-win for me. Although I don't know why the ink is not flowing. There's definitely ink on my pen. I have some paper here. Yeah, that's better. Something was blocking the ink flow. So you might have noticed if you draw with me more often that I often just create almost like a direct line without sort of thinking about it too much. So if you want to change it a little bit, you can do that. So this is that big feather at the top. It's almost about creating that silhouette. So embrace the wonkiness. It's okay if it's not all immediately perfect. Where's everyone from today? There's usually a few people from the US who are joining in, which is really lovely. Well, you're welcome from anywhere in the world, of course, but I always find it so interesting that people, connect with me from all over the world. And I'm based in the UK. I live in a town not too far from Cambridge, and I have an art studio in Cambridge where I work. And I often go into London, which is quite close by as well. And I find it really interesting that people come to my classes all the way from the US. I find it absolutely fascinating. And I'm sort of used to it now. But when I first started to go online, sort of during the pandemic, before that I was doing all my classes in person. So when I first started to go online, I found it absolutely sort of mind-blowing that people joined from all over the world. So I do not take it for granted. I still love it very, very much. So let's do these legs as well. I could switch to a different color in a little bit if I want to. I sort of like doing the whole page in one color. There we go. Quite happy with that one as well. Should we do another bird? Maybe another farm animal bird. Let's have a look. How about this one? Some chickens. I think it would make like a nice sort of farm animal bird page. So I wasn't really planning this. I never really plan too far ahead. Sometimes I decide if I want to draw animals or people. I really draw a lot of portraits as well. But today I fancy drawing animals, and so that's just what I decided to do. So I'm really enjoying these pens. I think this nib works really well for what I'm trying to achieve, and I like the line variety as well. So there we go. So this is a bit at an angle. And I don't know if you noticed, but my drawing is definitely not perfect either. But I do have some experience with it, and the more often you do it, the easier it gets. So if you think, oh, my chicken is super wonky, don't worry. The more often you practice this, the easier it gets. And what you're basically practicing is partly sort of hand-eye coordination. Because we're practicing seeing something and then putting that shape on the paper. So it's partly hand-eye coordination. And also quickly seeing the proportions, connecting the two. And it does take a bit of practice, even though, and the more you let go of it having to really be exactly the same as the photo, the easier it gets, because the tighter you hold on to it, the harder it becomes. I think it works like that with a lot of things. If you play an instrument, I think that's also the case. If you grip it really hard and really tight, then the sound is not going to come out like fluently and sort of soft or whatever you want it to sound like. And it's the same with drawing. The tighter you hold on to things, the harder it becomes. I know that's not very helpful when you're trying to start out, when you're learning, but I hope it sort of makes sense. Don't try too hard is basically the advice for what we're practicing today. I think there's other occasions when I practice a specific technique. I did some focus classes earlier this week where I was teaching people how to use coloring pencils, and we were really focused on like different color pencil techniques, and that's a little bit different because then it was not so much about the sketching but more about the different techniques. So it's a slightly different way of teaching different approach that I have then. So I think I'll do another chick because I really like them. I think they're very cute. So I can't believe it's February already. I went to Creative World in Frankfurt this weekend, and I got to test out a lot of art materials, which was really fun. Spoke to a lot of different brands. About things that are sort of upcoming in the creative industry, and I really loved it. And then I came back on Monday, and I've been doing lots of social media scheduling and scheduling posts for the next few weeks, because I sort of like social media, but I sort of hate it as well. I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with it. And sometimes I go through stages when I don't post anything for ages. So scheduling ahead makes things a bit lighter for me and a little bit easier. I think I am going to sort of wipe this pen for a moment. So there we go. And show you this trick that I wanted to show you. So close my ink, otherwise I might knock it over again, clumsy me, and zoom out. And what I want to show you is what happens if you use an ink like this, which is a water-based ink. So not waterproof, it's a water-based ink. What happens if I use a brush? I have a pot of water here. If I use a brush and some water, and I can use that water to add some shadows to my artwork. So see here, if I add some water to the outside, that ink is going to blur out towards that area that is wet, and it's going to create a much more loose drawing. It's really going to change the style of this sketch. So I'm just moving things around so I can show you properly. I hope that makes sense. The reason I can do this is because this ink is water soluble. Because the ink is water soluble, I can add some water and basically turn it into a soft sort of watercolor paint. And the trick, see, I'm adding a fair amount of water, like a proper little puddle. But the trick is to find a balance between adding water and leaving some lines really precise. Because if I add water everywhere, all I'm going to get is just a big blob of paint. So I'm trying to find that balance where some of these lines are going to be blurred out and soft, and some others are going to stay in place. See if I can even let that sort of blur out. I hope that makes sense. If anyone has any questions about the technique, let me know. You don't have to use this technique, it's just something that I really enjoy and that I like to show you. So, zoom out a little bit. So I'm going to do the same to this rooster, just using the tip of my brush. See, I use kind of a little bit of a puddle of water, fairly generous, because I want this paint to sort of blur out and mix up. So there we go. See, it's almost like I color in that section by using the water to make this ink into paint. So how that creates a really loose sort of watercolor style, something that I really like and very often use in my artwork. So and I also quite like it when it's sort of like here, and sort of moved it around, where I create almost like splashes or like little like blemishes or blushes, I don't know how you'd call it, like of that paint. It's not very busy today. It's kept. Is there something going on? I think maybe the holidays have all stopped and everyone is getting back to work. There's usually a few hundred people watching my videos, watching the recordings. So now people are on different time zones as well. So I don't mind if you catch it live or watch it afterwards. Either way is of course absolutely fine, but I always love, it's nice to know that people are watching at the same time. It motivates me to keep talking and to keep sharing as well. So I'm actually going to record a podcast after this. I have recorded a number of podcasts recently, like solo podcasts. I usually have guests, but I recently been doing some solo podcasts. And the last one was what happened to my art practice after sort of creating art every single day for 5 years. So I'm just trying to make sure you can see what I'm doing. Got too many things on my table. There we go. See, I added a bit of water to this one as well. And I was thinking of making a podcast about how having an art studio has changed my practice, because in September I moved into a shared studio, and I think it made quite a big difference to the way I make art and also to my style. I really started to make art in a very different style than what I did before that. And I think there's a few things sort of about having a studio that make you appear much more professional, even though I don't know if that really makes a difference. It doesn't make you more professional to have that space, but it sounds very professional. So I think when you tell people I have an art studio and this is where I work from, it just makes you sound more professional. And there's a few other things. So I was thinking of recording a podcast about that, maybe for 10-20 minutes. So there we go. The only thing is that this page is a bit wet now. So am I sure I dry it or should I use a different sheet? I think I might quickly dry it. See what I mean if I zoom in for a moment? See what I mean by everything becomes really loose, and sometimes you have details that you added in your initial drawing that then sort of disappear a little bit. And that's okay. I don't mind it. So once it's dry, you can always add more detail in again with your pen. That little bit of unpredictability I think is quite nice. So I'm just lifting my book, see if there's any other details that I can quickly show you before I grab my hairdryer. See? There we go. Especially if you look at it like this, like especially this chick is very wonky. Don't know what's going on with this one. Really wonky. But sort of, you can still tell that it's a little bird. This one is a bit more dry now, so you can see how that ink has blurred out and created all these beautiful textures, which I really love. And so, maybe for today I'm going to move my reference picture to the other side. So there we go. You might see my mouse pop in here and there, but that's okay. So that's a little bit easier for me to share this way. My camera's in a slightly different position from usual, I noticed, but this works really well as well. So I'm going to quickly dry this, just with my hair dryer, which I have somewhere close by. Well, I should do. It's usually plugged in here. When did I use it last? I've tidied up my office yesterday. That's alright. I tidied up my office yesterday and now I can't find anything, so this is the problem, isn't it? I'm just going to let this dry for a bit and then maybe in the meantime I will make a sketch on some dark paper. So, there we go. I wanted to try this on black paper anyway, because I have some silver and some white here. So same technique. So, where's my pen? Here. So you don't need black paper, just carry on the paper that you're using. So just cleaning my pen, and actually let me pick the next animal. So I'm taking a clean nib just because I'm going in the white and otherwise it's going to be contaminated with lots of pink/red paint. So there we go. So I'm going to try a different nib just because it's a little bit easier, and actually I think this is a super cute picture. So let's stick with that. It sort of was in front. It was at the forefront of this drawing. So are you all drawing along? Just watching for today? go. So I'm going to use my white and maybe add in some silver for some details. So again, Winsor & Newton paint. I need to shake this a little bit more. That's always dangerous. That's where it goes wrong, where I spill everything. So, it sounds nice, doesn't it? So, there we go. I'm going to draw this little scene in white ink. So exactly the same, doesn't matter if you sketch on dark paper or on light or what the materials are that you're using. There we go. So I'm going to start with this tab, which I like to add in as well. So I just need to concentrate a little bit. The reason I started with the tab is to sort of ease in a little bit and not do the mouse in a moment. So this nib is a little bit bigger than the other one. See, there we go. And then there's going to be a drop of water coming out of it. So, and now I'm going to that mouse. So I might add in some more details here in a moment. This ink is a little bit thick. Maybe I need to add in a tiny bit of water. Sometimes it dries out a bit and is not coming out of the pen very well. So let's add a little bit of water. So, and then clean it as well. See, I already dropped some pink paint in here. Do you ever draw on black paper? And if so, why? What do you like about it? I really like using it with color pencils as well. I think it works fantastic with color pencils. If you might have seen actually on my channel the first video, which I've pinned sort of to the to the screen, is an drawing a lizard on black paper. So you might actually have noticed that, but it's a little while since I have used any black paper. So there we go. So this is better. This is actually working now. So this is the eye. I'm not going sort of in reversed shape. You know, where I only do the highlights and not the lines. I'm just drawing in white. Should I add these berries as well? Let's do it. So. Sometimes you have to press a little bit on these pens to actually get the ink out. Sometimes it gets stuck a bit, and if you press down, it works a little bit better. So these sessions, these sketchbook sessions, are always between sort of roughly half an hour and an hour long. Sometimes I film them on the road, which often leads to slightly less quality than when I'm in my office, unfortunately. But I just try to not cancel them and go ahead sort of every time. So this is another of those rosebud sort of berries, whatever this is. Another leaf. I think it looks quite cute in white. Shall I just give this mouse a bit of a tail? Let's do it. Sometimes you can make things up a little bit yourself. Ferns. So, and I was still planning to also add in some water here as well to to create some of that sort of softening effect. It might all become a disaster because I've never tried this with water on black paper. But I think it's fun to see what happens. Try it out and just go with whatever the vibe is going to be. You might have noticed that I'm adding in a few extra of these berry branches. I'm putting them in a slightly different space because I think that is quite fun to do. Added a little bit too much butter. That's all right. Shall we add some water? See what happens. Just cleaning my pen. So I do think it's a lovely looking pen as well. Really enjoy using it. So let's add some water. No questions today. Everyone is just concentrated and drawing along, or maybe keeping their questions till the end. You don't need to ask questions, but usually there's a few. So this is very, is this waterproof ink? Let me quickly check. Where's the bottle? I think it might be. Yeah, look. I've never used the white ink for this before. Well, it seems so. That is a bit different because all the other Winsor & Newton ones that I have are waterproof. See, I can go over it and it all stays in place. Well, there we go. That is the surprise of the day. Let's add a bit of silver to it then for fun. I did not expect that because all the other ones that I have are very very much water soluble. So I'm just adding a bit of silver instead with a brush. That's actually quite nice. That means I can paint over it and the white stays in place. It doesn't say so on the bottle. I just assumed it was not waterproof. See, it stays perfectly in place even though it's wet. Do you ever have surprises like this where you really don't expect the result and then something happens? You're like, huh? How is this possible? So I'll add some silver to the drop as well. It's easy to overdo it, isn't it? The only thing that I think is that the eye is a bit creepy, and I think I need to add a bit of black back to that eye to make it a little bit less ghostly. I'm just going to use a black pen. There we go. I think this is quite a fun, quick little sketch. Enjoyed making that. I just need to wait for this water to dry up, and then you can see the sort of final result a little bit better. Yes, if you never draw on black paper, I would recommend it. It's really fun, and it gives a very different feel from drawing on normal paper. You can see the silver is a bit shimmering. There was an artist in Frankfurt at this fair where I was that used silver ink as a background. So they painted the entire paper with it to give it a bit of shimmer, and then started to paint over it with watercolors. My hands are an absolute mess. Started to paint over it with watercolors, and that gave also a really interesting fun effect where you could see the sort of shimmering through the translucency of the watercolors. Let me quickly check what time it is. I think I'm sort of slowly going to wrap up. Shall we check if this page is dry? The peak is still a bit wet, so I need to let that set a bit more. I'm not going to tinker with it, otherwise I'm just going to create a stain. I think that's quite a fun technique. I'm quite curious if this is a technique that you've used before. Maybe you have seen me use it. I use it quite often. So maybe you have seen me use it. It works really well for portraits as well, because it's a lovely way to just add a little bit of shadow to a drawing. And I really like how you create these sort of natural like darks and lights where the paint comes together a bit more, or where it goes apart a bit more. And this was a big surprise, the fact that the white one is waterproof. So thank you so much for joining in. Actually, some of the paints that I have are actually watercolors, so liquid watercolors. Yeah, like this one, for example, is a liquid watercolor. So of course, because it's a liquid watercolor, it will dissolve if you add more water to it. So that's also a technique, one that I use very often for this technique. Does it say something else on here? Does not. Conforms to an ASTMD. I'll need to look that up. Maybe that means waterproof or not waterproof. Thank you, Norma. Really lovely to see you. I really hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you all again next week for another sketchbook session. So thank you so much for joining in, and I really hope to see you all again soon. Bye bye.